I think we have Dr. Glassman with us now on line 7. Dr. Glassman, welcome to the program.
Yes, hi. Thank you so much for taking my call, and I'm just delighted that a patient of mine told me about the show because, frankly, I respect both of you so much, and I just want to respond to the previous caller. I am a medical doctor, and I've been a physician for 20 years, and what I've learned, one of the things that I've learned is that, for me, vulnerability is my greatest asset. I find that we physicians so many times define ourselves by the fact that we are physicians, and we walk through our lives and go through our personal and professional lives kind of wearing this badge, saying that we're doctors and hiding behind that. And I've learned, and especially what I'm going to talk about, what happened 4 years ago, helped me see that even more clearly. And it's helped me, and as I expose myself, in a sense, to my patients, and through my meetings with them and through motivational emails that I send to them, I find that our relationship, our physician-patient relationship, is so much deeper and truer and healing than anything in the past that I experienced. So I just want to encourage both patients and physicians to be more vulnerable and to see how many opportunities that actually does open up for you. But what I was calling in, again, I can't believe I'm talking with both of you. 4 years ago, my wife was diagnosed with breast cancer, and this came out of the blue. Both of us, healthy adults, maintain very healthy lifestyles, and it was actually around the time when Suzanne Summers' book came out, because I remember reading about her breast cancer, and this was probably within a week or two of my wife's diagnosis, which, again, is no coincidence that I'm sure about. But so my wife was diagnosed, and thank goodness it was a stage 1, and everything was localized and was fully resected. But, of course, conventional wisdom says that even though, when I say conventional wisdom, conventional medical wisdom is that she's sick now. And she's sick, and now she has to be cured and taken care of. And what that cure would mean, is at least as far as what the doctors, and it's funny when you're on the other end, but I'll say the doctors told both of us that she's lucky, but really, in fact, this was told to us not only by a conventional, but supposedly an integrative medical doctor, which I consider myself an integrative doctor, but an integrative oncologist told us, met with both of us, and after a thorough evaluation, he suggested that, you're lucky, it was caught early, and actually this is what he said. He said, you're very lucky because what you have is cookbook. And that's the quote. What you have is cookbook. And this, my heart sank because I really felt as though we had gone to the appropriate person, somebody who I thought was like-minded. And he said, well, you should feel lucky because we have ways of treating this. You had the surgery. Now I would recommend that you have radiation, tamoxifen, and for good measure, chemotherapy.
Whoa.
For good measure. So
for good measure, right, just in case.
Right, just in case. So, of course, my wife said, well, aren't I going to appear sick to my children? Won't I lose my hair? And he said, well, it should grow back. And I could see that he was running short of time, so that was the end of it. But to make a long story short regarding this episode, my wife decided that she would undergo the radiation. We decided together that's what she would do after the lumpectomy. And she decided not to go on tamoxifen and not to undergo chemotherapy. And she truly believed in her decision. And that's what I'm going to mention about another patient that I counseled on this. She truly believed in her decision. And, 4.5 years later, so far so good. But this is because she doesn't live as though she's a sick person. She lives vibrantly. She lives every day is a healthy day, and she really believes in her decision strongly. And our 4 children and I are very loving and happy for that. But then I'll talk about another patient who.
Well, let me just stop you just for one second, because I just finished a book. I think you're familiar with it too, Christiane, called The Biology of Belief.
Mm-hmm. I love that book.
I do too, by Bruce Lipton.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and he talks really about the power of belief to not just change what you're talking about there with the diagnosis of disease, but to literally change around our DNA and any built-in genetic predispositions that we might have towards something, that these can literally be changed by our beliefs. Christiane, is this your experience? Is this what your message is as well?
Absolutely, and there's some other data, and I'm sure, Dr. Glassman, you're aware of it, that thoughts that are angry and resentful and so on will actually cause the DNA to coil more tightly, whereas uplifting thoughts relax the DNA and change the way messenger RNA reads off the DNA. People put way too much stock in our genetics and don't realize that the environment, your thoughts, your emotions, your behavior is actually what causes the genetic material to be read in a certain way.
And what about fear? I mean, because so much of the word cancer itself is just a great big, flashing sign of fear, fear, fear. What are the thoughts? I mean, in the Course in Miracles says there's only two emotions. There's fear and love. Everything that's fear cannot be love. Everything that's love cannot be fear. So if there's any truth to that, I mean, a fear thought means you move away from love and compassion and kindness and belief and so on, and into disaster and horror, and the chemistry of our bodies are going to react that way, aren't they?
Yeah, and that's pretty much what the mainstream media specializes in, taking all the bad news of the entire world and setting it to evocative music.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
There was a research study that was done on these warning labels that are put on cigarette packages, and there's a real strong belief that by letting people know that we create more cancer just by having everybody look at this and live in fear every time that they take one of these cigarettes. And the bigger the message, the more likely it is that you're going to buy into that message and maybe create something that you didn't have to create if you weren't warned about it.
That's right. That's right.
Well, one thing I'd like to say is that I was going to mention another patient, but I think this is important. For the last year and a half or so, I've been putting out for my patients on an email list a motivational email. And what I've been talking about, and actually I compiled that into a book, which is, well, I'll get to that anyway. I don't have to get to that. What I talk about has a lot to do with the autonomic nervous system. And what I really believe is that we focus in medicine on the physical response of the autonomic nervous system. For those who aren't familiar with the autonomic nervous system, that's basically the fight or flight response that we experience and that you may have learned about in high school biology, and we've all experienced when we as I experienced when I was calling into this show, okay? My heart was beating fast and all that kind of thing. Or if you see a police officer in your rearview mirror, or if somebody picks you out of a crowd to speak, whatever, we are familiar with that physical response. But I think what is so profound is what the thoughts that creates. And what I've defined that as is the automatic brain of ego. That's what I've defined that, is that it's an automatic, where our thoughts become automatic, and that is the blocking. That fear becomes the blocking to any type of any type of. It prevents the spirit from getting in. And so, in a doctor's world, where we define ourselves very narrowly as physicians, we set up this barrier, and both not only for our patients but ourselves, so we don't